Hello folks, I'm Trev Makes It Easy, the channel where we make learning easy. In this series, Trev on Econ, I'll be taking you through topics you're likely to run into in any introductory course in economics at the college or university level. My goal is to make economics less scary, more approachable, and, if I can, mildly enjoyable. With that being said, let's make it easy. All right, folks, let's get started. Today we're going to deal into the next model, I guess is the best way to describe it, but we're going to be looking at effectively how trade works and specifically how trade makes everyone better. Again, this is a bit of a longer topic, which means we're going to have to do it in a couple parts, but I hope you stick through it with me and we'll see how it goes. So you'll notice already I have this little table popped up here with two countries, in this case Canada and the US, and I've got them kind of stereotypically making syrup and nachos. Kind of random. And for each country, they're making the same good and they're making different combinations, right? Now, if you've watched the previous video on the PPF, which if you haven't, I would recommend it before this video, you'll see right away that this is effectively a PPF for Canada attached to a PPF for the US. So I could actually quickly sketch this out if I grab the right tool, quickly sketch this out and compare Canada and the US. Again, raw data is fine. Raw data gets the job done, but a lot of the time it's nice to graph. So we're going to do a very simple graph here. For Canada, let's do red, I guess. They're going from 0.45 to 30.0. Now you could plot out all 4 points, but if you notice, this is going up by 10s. This is going up by down, I guess, by 15s. So this is going to be a linear relationship. So I'm just going to plot the intercepts of 0 syrup, 45 nachos, 30 syrup, 0 nachos. So just for consistency, let's put syrup up there, nacho down there. And we will end up with, let's just say, roughly something like this. Now you'll notice I'm not accurately measuring anything or laying out the numbers like you would with a proper graph. The thing is with economics, a lot of the times we just need to sketch. So getting just a rough idea of the shape at this level is going to be enough. Now, I am going to quickly throw in the numbers here just so I can remember them for myself. So we could make 30 syrup and 0 nachos, or we could make 45 nachos and 0 syrup. Again, anywhere in between that, I get my PPF. I can be on the line or below. Can't go past it yet. Again, if you haven't watched that PPF video, you'll probably want to watch it before this one. For the US, let's do blue, I guess. Same idea. So we're going to put syrup up here, nachos down here. And again, I can see roughly the shape from the data. It's going up by 25s. It's going down by 20s. So again, it's consistent. So I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. So something like that. Again, doesn't have to be to scale. As long as you have the general shape, you're probably in a good spot. So we've got 75 syrup. That's our maximum we can make if we make 0 nachos. Or we can do 60 nachos and 0 syrup. Now, both countries right now are making both goods because, well, why not? They want to be self-sufficient. That is a big push right now in 2025 when this is being recorded. Countries are trying to be a little more insular, where they're trying to do everything themselves. The goal today is to show, hopefully, why that's maybe not the best case. So, right now, we have our two countries, the USA and Canada. And the question we're really trying to answer today is, should they trade? And to do this, we have to look at it through different lenses because it's very easy to look at it through an incorrect lens and be sold on an idea that isn't necessarily true. The biggest offender of this is the first way we can look at advantage. So advantage is, like the English word, just who does something better. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is something called absolute advantage, right? This is the one that I would say is the easiest to sell to people and try and, for lack of a better word, trick them into thinking trade is not ideal, all right, or that trade is somehow not necessary. Now, the way absolute advantage works is effectively who makes the most of each good if they use all their resources. Okay, we can use more technical terms. You could probably vary this definition a little to include a little more nuance, but at the end of the day, this is really what absolute advantage is about. Just who can make the most given what they have. All right. So this is a very easy exercise because without too much thought process, I hope, you can probably look at this and kind of realize something. So if we look at syrup, right? Well, if Canada really tries, and I look at its chart, if it puts everything into syrup, it's going to max out at 30 syrup, right? And again, we can see that on the graph through the intercept. The USA, however, they max out at 75 syrup, and again, we see that on the graph. So we can say USA has an absolute advantage in syrup. Easy. This is probably one of the easiest questions you can get asked in economics. So, if you run into it, lucky you. I've noticed a lot of professors will kind of skip questions about absolute advantage simply because it's a little too easy. But again, sometimes you need those gimme questions. We repeat this exercise for nachos. And again, this time we have to look upwards, obviously. But if Canada puts everything they have into nachos, they're only making 45. Okay? I don't know if that's good yet. Again, I need a comparison. And again, all I'm doing is looking at this intercept on the graph. Some questions you'll get graphs, some questions you'll get tables. It's always good to be comfortable with both. Now for the US, same exercise. They go from 0 all the way up to 60. And again, we see that in their graph, which leads us to, well, USA has an absolute advantage in nachos. And a lot of people conclude, and I wouldn't write this down if you're taking notes for whatever reason, but therefore, USA does not need to trade, right? Basically, they're doing so good. Look at, they make more of everything. And you can hopefully tell by my extreme sarcasm, this is not true. Okay, we do not use this. So let's talk about absolute advantage. So first things first, let's take the cross out because now these words are important. You can have absolute advantage in 0, 1, or both goods. Okay, doesn't matter. In this case, the US had it in syrup and nachos, which means Canada had it in 0 things. You might run into problems where it's 1 and 1 or, flipped. So there's all manner of combination that can happen between these two goods. Now, why this all matters is that it actually doesn't matter. All right, that is its point, I guess, is that this is not a good basis for deciding trade. Right? This is actually a terrible basis. The problem is it's a very simple basis. And when you have a simple idea, it's very easy to communicate, right? There are countries in the world, not naming names, that will just say, we make so much stuff, why would I need these other countries? Or why don't I just do it myself because I already have the resources and the capability? The problem with that is that, again, it's not a very good reason. I will prove to you that even though the US is better at syrup and nachos from this standpoint, we're going to look at a different standpoint in a moment and see that that's probably a better tool. And that tool usually dictates that trade is a good idea. Okay, so absolute advantage is absolutely basic and kind of absolutely useless. All right, it's a common trick in the real world. Keep an eye out for it. Just because someone's the biggest at something, it doesn't mean they're the best at it. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to round off part 1 by talking about the alternative method. All right. The alternative method is something called comparative advantage. And comparative advantage is going to look at this idea of who's the best in a slightly different light. instead of just saying who is the biggest and baddest and best at producing, it's going to take, again, a more nuanced approach and consider some other factors. So what compared advantage answers is, instead of who can make the most, it's who can produce each good at the lowest opportunity cost. Now, this is a term we've used before, but opportunity cost is that very specific trade-off where you are giving up the most valued other thing. Now, in a situation like this, it's very easy because, well, if I only have two goods, the opportunity cost is the other thing, right? So what this is saying in plain English is who gives up the least amount of syrup to make nachos, and who gives up the least amount of nachos to make syrup, right? There's that trade-off where when I make more nachos, I have to give up some syrup. When I make more syrup, I have to give up some nachos, right? As I reallocate those resources. The problem with this is that it's not as easy as just looking at the table. Some people can. That is a skill you might acquire over time, but I'm not going to take that for granted. And we're going to have to do a little bit of mathematics. And this is the kind of the first time we're really seeing math involved in the economics course. Economics can be pretty math heavy. At the intro level, it's usually kept a lot simpler. But if you were to pursue it further, the math does become pretty intense. So before we get to the math, which again will probably be the next video, we have to come up with some key points about this. The biggest thing, and the thing that's going to actually save us some time, especially if you're doing something like this on a test, is that you can only have compared advantage in one good. The other country has to have the other good. Okay. So we're going to do some math later where we might find out, oh, Canada's good at syrup. And instantly, if I know Canada's good at syrup, they can't also be good at nachos from a comparative advantage standpoint. All right. So that's going to allow us to do some shortcuts later on that we'll abuse to save some time. But just keep this one in mind. It seems like a small thing, but with absolute advantage, you could have 2, 1, or 0. This one, it has to be 1. All right. Canada will be better at syrup or it will be better at nachos in this description. US will be better at nachos or better at syrup in this description. They can't have both. The final piece we're going to look at is this is the basis of good trade. All right. It turns out that this more nuanced approach and looking at who can make things basically more efficiently instead of just with more stuff, this is going to provide us with a clearer picture of who is better at what. And then once we know that fact, we'll be able to use that to effectively decide who does what and then trade off in an efficient way. We're going to stop it there for today. We're going to do the math next time because, again, most people need a break before math. But I hope you follow along and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Well, folks, that wraps up another lesson for today. I hope it was helpful. If you found the video valuable, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about the content or requests for other topics or subjects you'd like me to cover, please leave a comment below. Until next time, keep learning and make it easy.